The Frozen Core. A sci-fi story. Part 1. The alarms were already screaming when Kale dropped through the melt shaft. A column of steam roared upward past him, hot enough to blister exposed skin, cold enough at the edges to crystallize instantly. The shaft walls, once smooth ice, were now jagged, trembling, alive with faint pulses of blue light that hadn't been there an hour ago. He hit the landing grate hard, boots skidding. The metal vibrated beneath him like something breathing. Kale's status. Lyra's voice crackled through the calm, distorted by interference that hadn't existed before the thaw. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Not yet, because the cavern in front of him, once a hollow pocket of ice carved by the mining lasers, was no longer a cavern at all. It was a corridor that had not been there yesterday. A corridor that was moving. The walls, translucent, layered with ancient frost, shifted in slow, deliberate patterns, like muscle beneath skin. Light pulsed through them in rhythmic waves, as though the entire structure were waking from a long, unwilling sleep. Kale swallowed hard. Lyra, you need to see this. He stepped forward, boots crunching on ice that cracked like brittle bone. The air smelled metallic, ionized, wrong. The corridor extended deep into the planet's crust, its geometry impossible. Angles that bent inward, outward, and somewhere else entirely. Behind him, the melt shaft sealed itself with a groan of shifting ice. He was trapped, and the corridor was waiting. Before the awakening. 3 days earlier, the world had been silent. The planet, designated Glacium 4, was a frozen sphere orbiting a dying star. Its crust was kilometers of ice layered over a metallic core that corporate geologists swore held enough rare alloys to fund a dozen colonies. Kale had believed them. He'd signed the contract. He'd boarded the transport. He'd descended into the ice with the rest of the crew. He'd expected monotony, cold, and corporate oversight. He had not expected a city, not one buried in the heart of a planet. Not one older than any civilization humanity had ever encountered. Not one that felt alive. The first breach. The melt rigs had been running non-stop for weeks, carving a vertical shaft through the crust. The deeper they went, the stranger the readings became. Metallic echoes, hollow pockets, faint electromagnetic pulses that didn't match geological patterns. When the rigs finally broke through into a void, the crew had cheered. Then the cheering stopped, because the void wasn't empty. It was structured, layered, designed. Kale had been the first to descend. He remembered the moment his boots touched the ice floor. Smooth, polished, unnaturally perfect. He remembered brushing frost from a curved surface and revealing metal beneath, etched with patterns that shifted when he wasn't looking directly at them. He remembered the silence. A silence that felt like listening. They'd set up floodlights. The beams had revealed towers, massive, frozen spires rising from the planet's core like the bones of a buried titan. Bridges arched between them, suspended in ice. Domes and chambers spiraled outward in fractal patterns. A city, an entire city, entombed. Lyra had whispered the first thought that crossed all their minds. This wasn't frozen by accident. The thaw protocol. Corporate wanted samples. Corporate always wanted samples. So they thawed a section, just a small one, using controlled thermal pulses. The ice melted reluctantly, as though resisting. Beneath it, the metal gleamed with a dull, dark sheen, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Kale had touched it. It had been warm. Not from the thaw. Warm from within. That night, the temperature in the cavern rose by 2 degrees. The next night, by 5. By the third night, the ice itself began to shift. Structures rearranged. Bridges realigned. Towers extended like growing limbs. Lights flickered deep within the ice, faint at first, then brighter, pulsing in patterns that resembled language. Something was waking. Something that had been imprisoned. And the ice had been the lock. Back to the corridor. Kale moved deeper into the shifting passage. The walls pulsed faster now, reacting to his presence. His breath fogged in front of him, then dissipated as the temperature rose. Kale, respond. Lyra's voice snapped through the comm again, sharper this time. We're reading seismic movement around your position. The melt shaft just. Static swallowed her words. Kale tapped the comm, nothing. He was alone. The corridor widened into a chamber. The ceiling arched high above him, lost in swirling mist. The floor was a mosaic of metallic plates arranged in spirals, each plate etched with symbols that shifted when he blinked. In the center of the chamber stood a pillar of ice, clear, crystalline, humming with energy. Inside it, something moved. Kale froze. The shape was humanoid, tall, elongated. Its limbs were jointed in too many places. Its head was crowned with branching structures like antlers or antennae. Its eyes, closed, were faceted like crystal. It was not dead. It was dreaming, and the ice around it was melting. Kale stepped back, heart pounding. No, no, no. The pillar cracked. A sound like shattering glass echoed through the chamber. The creature's eyes snapped open. They glowed, not with light, with awareness. The city responds. The chamber trembled. The walls rippled outward in concentric waves. The corridor behind Kale sealed shut with a grinding of ice and metal. He was trapped with the thing in the pillar. The creature tilted its head, studying him. The ice continued to melt, dripping in rivulets that hissed when they touched the floor. Kale raised his hands instinctively. I don't want trouble. The creature blinked slowly. Then the chamber lights flared. Not white, not blue, red. Warning red. The city was reacting. Not to Kale, to the creature. The ice prison had been a containment cell, and Kale had helped open it. Lyra's descent. Far above, Lyra slammed her fist against the console. I've lost him. The whole lower grid is shifting. The other miners stared at the holographic map as the city's geometry rearranged itself in real time. Towers rotated. Bridges folded. Chambers expanded like lungs inhaling. It's alive, someone whispered. No, Lyra said. It's waking up. She grabbed her thermal suit and clipped her harness. I'm going down. Lyra. The shaft sealed itself. Then I'll melt a new one. She activated the portable melt cutter. The beam ignited, carving a glowing line into the ice. She didn't care if the city was alive. She didn't care if the planet was a prison. Kale was down there, and she wasn't leaving him. The first contact. Kale backed toward the chamber wall as the creature stepped free of the melting pillar. Its movements were fluid, graceful, too smooth to be natural. Frost steamed off its body in shimmering waves. It spoke, not in sound, in vibration. The chamber floor hummed beneath Kale's boots, forming patterns that resonated in his bones. Images flashed in his mind, cities of light, towers rising into alien skies, a civilization vast and ancient. Then fire, collapse, a darkness spreading across worlds. A last refuge carved into the heart of a frozen planet. A prison built not to contain the creatures, but to contain what hunted them. Kale staggered. You're not the threat. The creature's eyes glowed brighter. The chamber trembled again. Something deeper in the city was moving. Something larger. Something older. The creature turned toward the far wall, its posture tense. It was afraid. Kale felt the fear like a cold hand around his spine. Whatever was waking in the depths of the city was not meant to wake. The heartbeat. A low, rhythmic thud echoed through the chamber. A heartbeat, not biological, mechanical, planetary. The entire world pulsed in time with it. Kale pressed his hand to the wall. The ice vibrated beneath his palm, warm now, almost hot. The city was accelerating its thaw, melting its own prison. Not to free itself, to prepare for something. The creature stepped closer to Kale, towering over him. It extended a hand, long, jointed, crystalline. Kale hesitated. Then he took it. The creature's touch was cold enough to burn. Images flooded his mind again, this time clearer. A warning. A plea. A command. Run. The deep movement. The chamber floor split open. Kale and the creature leapt aside as a massive structure rose from the depths. An obsidian monolith covered in shifting glyphs. Pulsed with red light, each pulse stronger than the last. The creature hissed, a sound like cracking ice. The monolith answered with a deeper pulse. Kale felt it in his teeth, in his skull, in his thoughts. A voice, ancient, hungry, unbound. The creature grabbed Kale and pulled him toward a side passage that hadn't existed moments ago. The walls opened for them, reshaping to form a path. Behind them, the monolith cracked open. Something inside began to emerge. Something vast. Something wrong. Lyra breaks through. Lyra's melt cutter finally breached the shifting ice. She dropped into a new corridor, one that hadn't been on any scan. The walls pulsed red, vibrating with a rhythm that made her stomach twist. "Kale!" she shouted. Her voice echoed, swallowed by the living architecture. She moved forward, weapon drawn, breath sharp in the rising heat. The city was no longer dormant. It was alive, and it was afraid. The pursuit. Kale ran. The creature ran beside him, its limbs bending at impossible angles as it navigated the shifting corridors. Behind them, the monolith's roar shook the city. The walls folded, twisted, sealed, opened, guiding them, protecting them. The city wasn't trying to imprison Kale. It was trying to save him. Save them both. From the thing it had been built to contain. Kale gasped for breath. What is that thing? The creature sent a single image into his mind. A star collapsing. A world consumed. A shadow with no form, no face, no mercy. A devourer. The last of its kind. And now it was waking. The core trembles. The temperature spiked. Ice melted in sheets, revealing more of the alien architecture. Spires, conduits, chambers filled with dormant machines that flickered to life as Kale passed. The city was activating defenses. Too late. A shockwave tore through the corridor, throwing Kale against the wall. The creature shielded him with its body, crystalline limbs absorbing the impact. The roar came again. Closer. The devourer was hunting. Convergence. Lyra rounded a corner and froze. Kale stood at the far end of the corridor. Beside him was the creature. Her weapon snapped up instantly. Kale! Get away from it! Kale raised his hands. Lyra, wait! The walls trembled violently. A shadow spilled into the corridor behind Kale, stretching across the floor like ink spreading through water. Lyra's breath caught. Kale turned slowly. The devourer filled the corridor. A mass of shifting darkness, tendrils of void curling outward, absorbing light, absorbing heat, absorbing everything. The creature stepped between Kale and the shadow. The devourer lunged. The clash. The corridor exploded into motion. The creature unleashed a blast of crystalline energy that shattered the walls, sending shards of ice flying. The devourer absorbed the blast, its form rippling like disturbed water. Lyra fired her weapon. The beam vanished into the darkness without effect. Kale grabbed her arm. We need to move. The creature slammed into the devourer, buying them seconds. Seconds were all they had. They ran. Behind them, the city screamed. Toward the heart. The corridors opened ahead, guiding them downward toward the planet's core. The temperature rose with every step. Steam hissed from vents. Lights flickered in frantic patterns. Kale looked back. The creature was losing ground. The devourer was gaining. And the city was running out of time. Part 2. Collapse. The devourer struck like a tidal wave of darkness. The creature, Kale's unlikely protector, met it head-on. Their collision detonated a shockwave that tore the corridor apart. Ice shattered. Metal screamed. The floor split open, dropping Kale and Lyra into a lower chamber. Kale hit hard, rolling across a sloped surface. Lyra landed beside him, gasping, her weapon skittering away into the dark. Above them, the creature and the devourer crashed through the ceiling, locked in a violent, impossible struggle. Light and shadow twisted around each other, tearing chunks of the city free. Kale grabbed Lyra's arm. "We have to move." She didn't argue. The chamber around them was vast, circular, lined with towering pillars of translucent ice. Each pillar contained shapes, bodies, dozens of the crystalline beings, all frozen in poses of fear, defiance, or prayer. A graveyard, or a last stand. Lyra whispered, "What happened to them?" Kale didn't answer, because he already knew. The devourer had happened, and if they didn't escape, it would happen again. The city speaks. The floor lit beneath their feet, forming a glowing path. The pillars vibrated, resonating with a low, harmonic hum. Kale felt the message in his bones. "Follow." He pulled Lyra along the illuminated path. The chamber shifted around them, pillars sliding aside, walls folding inward, creating a spiraling descent deeper into the planet. Lyra glanced back. "Kale, that thing. The one helping you. What is it?" "A prisoner," Kale said. "Just like the others." "And the shadow?" Kale swallowed. "The reason the prison exists." A thunderous roar echoed from above. The devourer was breaking through the upper levels, consuming everything in its path. The city trembled. The path accelerated. They were being delivered somewhere, not away from danger, toward the heart of it. The core chamber. The descent ended abruptly. Kale and Lyra stumbled into a colossal chamber, so large it felt like standing inside a hollowed-out moon. The walls were layered with crystalline conduits, all glowing with frantic pulses of red and blue. At the center of the chamber floated a sphere of ice the size of a transport ship. Suspended within it was a machine unlike anything human or alien, a machine that looked alive. Tendrils of metal and crystal extended from its core, embedded into the surrounding ice. Its surface pulsed with energy, each pulse synchronized with the planet's heartbeat. Lyra stared. "What is that?" Kale stepped closer, drawn by a force he didn't understand. The machine responded. A beam of light shot from its surface, enveloping him. Images flooded his mind, clearer than before, sharper, overwhelming. He saw the alien civilization at its height, millions of crystalline beings, cities spanning continents, technology woven into the fabric of their world. He saw the devourer arrive, a cosmic parasite drifting between stars, feeding on energy, on life, on consciousness. He saw worlds fall. He saw civilizations consumed. He saw this world, Glacium 4, chosen as the final refuge. The aliens built the machine at the planet's core, a planetary cryolock designed to freeze the devourer in place. But the lock required sacrifices. The aliens entombed themselves willingly, becoming part of the mechanism. Their city became the prison. Their bodies became the keys. Their minds became the warning. Kale staggered back, breath ragged. Lyra caught him. "Kale, what did it show you?" He looked at her, eyes wide. "This planet isn't a mine. It's a vault." The protector falls. A deafening crash shook the chamber. The creature, Kale's protector, fell through the ceiling, slamming into the floor with enough force to crack the ice. Its crystalline body flickered, fractures spreading across its limbs. The devourer descended after it, a swirling mass of darkness that filled the chamber like a storm cloud. Lyra raised her weapon again, even though it was useless. "We can't fight that." "No," Kale said. "But the planet can." The machine pulsed brighter, responding to his presence. The devourer turned toward the core, sensing the threat. The creature rose unsteadily, placing itself between the devourer and the machine. Its body glowed with a desperate, flickering light. Kale felt its message. "Finish what we began." The devourer lunged. The creature met it with a final, blinding burst of energy. The explosion threw Kale and Lyra to the ground. When the light faded, the creature lay shattered. The devourer reformed, weakened but still advancing. The machine pulsed urgently, waiting. The choice. Kale approached the core. Lyra grabbed his arm. Kale, what are you doing? It needs a key, he said. The aliens used themselves to power the lock. It needs a living mind to activate it again. Lyra shook her head. No, absolutely not. Kale looked at the shattered remains of the creature. It protected me. It showed me everything. It chose me. You're not sacrificing yourself, Lyra said, voice breaking. Kale smiled faintly. I'm not planning to die. He placed his hand on the machine. Light engulfed him. His mind expanded, stretched, merged with the machine's consciousness. He felt the planet systems, the frozen conduits, the dormant defenses. He felt the devourer's hunger. He felt the city's fear. He felt the lock waiting for a command. Lyra's voice echoed distantly. Kale, he spoke, not with words but with intent. Seal. The planet responds. The machine roared to life. Energy surged through the chamber, racing up the conduits, spreading through the city, through the crust, through the entire planet. The temperature plummeted. Ice formed instantly, racing across the walls, the floor, the ceiling. The devourer shrieked. A sound that tore at reality itself, as frost crawled up its tendrils, freezing the darkness in place. Thrashed, consuming heat, consuming light, consuming everything it touched. But the planet was stronger. The cryolock reactivated. The devourer's form solidified, frozen mid-scream, encased in a pillar of ice thicker than a mountain. The chamber fell silent. The machine dimmed. Kale collapsed. Aftermath. Lyra rushed to him, pulling him away from the core as frost spread across the floor. Kale, stay with me. His eyes fluttered open. Lyra, did it work? She looked around. The devourer was frozen. The city was still. The planet was quiet. It worked, she whispered. Kale smiled weakly. Good. The machine pulsed once more. A final message. Cycle complete. The chamber began to seal itself, ice closing in around the core. Lyra dragged Kale toward the exit as the walls folded, creating a path upward. The city guided them, its final act of gratitude. Behind them, the core chamber vanished beneath layers of ice. The devourer was imprisoned again. The planet slept. The ascent. The path led them through chambers now dormant, their lights fading. The temperature dropped rapidly as the cryolock reasserted itself. Kale leaned heavily on Lyra. The city, it's shutting down. It's going back to sleep, she said. And we're getting out. They reached the upper levels where the melt shaft had once been. The ice had reformed, but a narrow tunnel remained, just wide enough for them to climb. They emerged into the surface station as the first light of the dying star crept over the horizon. The air was frigid. The world was silent. The mining rigs were frozen solid. The entire planet had returned to its ancient slumber. The last message. Kale sat on the edge of the platform, wrapped in thermal blankets. Lyra worked on the emergency beacon, trying to punch a signal through the planet's renewed electromagnetic interference. Kale stared at the ice stretching endlessly in every direction. He felt different, changed, connected. Lyra sat beside him. You did it, you know? We did it, Kale said. She nudged him gently. What now? Kale looked toward the horizon. The universe is full of things we don't understand, he said. Some of them beautiful, some of them terrifying. He placed a hand on the ice beneath them. And some of them need to stay buried. The beacon activated, sending a pulse into the sky. A rescue ship would come. Eventually, Kale closed his eyes. Deep beneath the surface, the machine pulsed once, softly, like a heartbeat. Not a warning. Promise. The lock holds. For now. Epilogue: The Listening Dark. Far beyond Glacium 4, in the cold void between stars, something stirred. A ripple of darkness. A whisper of hunger. A fragment of the devourer's essence. Cast off before the freeze. drifting through space like a seed, searching, waiting, listening, felt the cryolock reactivate, felt the prison seal, felt the world go silent, and it smiled, not with a mouth, with intent. Another world will open, another vault will break, another feast will begin. The darkness drifted onward, toward the next star, toward the next civilization, toward the next story. This is the end of the sci-fi story, The Frozen Core. Leave a like if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe for more sci-fi stories. Thanks for listening.